Good morning, Friday the 15th of August, so another weekly update for you. This morning we've been out on the golf course doing a full setup to prepare as we always do, end of week, ready for the weekend. That's involved cutting greens, rolling greens, tees and aprons, and then we've had a full rake of the bunkers and divoting between the markers and moving the markers as well as they go back on from after the tee cuts. So elsewhere this week, cutting frequency has been very low. We cut fairways last week and we're definitely not under any pressure to do those. So tees and aprons have just been done twice, and greens we keep up with seven times a week, as the moisture levels in those are maintained quite highly, so that means that we still get plenty of growth out of the greens. So greens have been done every day again this week, but just tees and aprons twice this week outside of that. We've done something a little bit different with our hours this week. We're always not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel, but we're always looking for areas where we can improve, things we can do better. So something that we came up with and thought about was something I'm really keen on as an agronomic practice is to do evening hand watering. Now the reason I really like that is because you're putting in an intense large amount of water in a dry area where it needs to go, and then it's got all night to soak in and then really help retain moisture levels in that specific area. So we've obviously had a heat wave this week, so it was over 30 degrees plus earlier in the week, and we've continued to be high 20s and sunny throughout the week. So the ET rates, evapotranspiration, losing quite a lot of moisture out of the greens. So what we've done is we've come in earlier in the morning, so we're in at sort of 4:45, 4:30, 4:45, and then headed out onto the golf course, worked through till 11 a.m. where we've then had our break, and then we've all gone home and taken it in turns to come back and do one shift each, where someone comes in and does that evening hand watering shift. What that does, that works really well both ways in terms of it treats the greens like they are number one, and gives them the most attention to do the most important thing of retaining the moisture levels whilst we're in this heat wave and losing those ET rates. So greens are getting hand watered in the morning, in the afternoon, and then it also keeps us as staff out of the heat of the day. So our usual hours are 6 till 2:30. So we're missing that 11:30 till 2:30 shift and putting that into a hand watering in the evening. So it looks after the greens, it looks after us, it makes sense. And I must say, I think the greens look absolutely fantastic this week. The boys have done a really, really good job doing that, it's absolutely fantastic. Two other points is we've also put a wetting agent out. As we get into August, we start looking around the corner and hoping that we know that September, October is on the way with sort of cooler temperatures, less daylight hours. So we are under a little bit less pressure in terms of ET rates, where sunrise isn't till 5:30, and then it goes down again at 8:30. So there's a couple hours less than in the middle of June when you're getting those long hot days, and that increases your ET. So a little bit less pressure there. But we put a wetting agent out this week also to help retain those moisture levels in the soil. As I said, we're hoping as you get into August, you're always hoping it's the last one. But with the heat and the dry weather, we put another one out this week to help retain those moisture levels. And also between hand watering morning and evening and the wetting agent, that allows us to put much less water on at night. I will, after I've done this, and I'll go back and I'll just do a little bit at the end of what our expected ET rates of evapotranspirations were this week, so how much water we're supposed to lose in millimetres, and then I'll put on how much water we actually added through the automated system. So, and that helps a lot in keeping the budget and water bill down, because because we're getting the water where we need to, and it's being retained by that wetting agent. So this weather app tells us how much our ET rates are, so how much we're losing, and you can see we're losing just over 4 millimeters in each day over the weekend, and then into early next week. And that's just with this weather we're experiencing at the end of the week. So these ET rates would have been even higher earlier in the week when we were reaching sort of 30 degrees. It can get up as high as 6 millimeters worth of loss of water. And we were able to put on an average about we put on 2 millimeters per night because we were doing such a good job of the hand watering. And then we put 6 millimeters on Wednesday to help really wash that wetting agent into the soil profile, because that's where it needs to get to be active to help start retaining that moisture. So yeah, that as I said, really helps reduce the cost of that automated water at night. So I've run a dry run program of the volume of water, 2 milliliters of water across all of the short game area and on the greens on the golf course, and that adds up to 30 watt, just over 31 cube, and which means that it costs £83.50 just to get 2 millimeters of water on. Now, quite often, as I said, on Monday to replenish that water, that 6 millimeters, that's obviously going to cost in excess of £240 worth of water just to restore those moisture levels. So that's where I think that contextualizes what I'm trying to say, really, where putting hand watering twice a day and adding the wetting agent in allows us to only put 2 millimeters of water on at night. It's a really, really good saving. I wouldn't have a figure for how much water we use hand watering. I could do that by doing a meter reading before and after, I perhaps will do that for my own knowledge of how much it costs roughly to do hand water. But yeah, there's a really good saving from doing that hand watering and putting the wetting agent out. Elsewhere out on the golf course this week, we've done a bunker run of sand levels out on the bunkers. So I had a really good scratch around in those, trying to find where all the sand is and get them back into the middles of the bunkers. So the depths of the desired levels. Obviously, I've talked past about bunkers and things and how they're a hazard. We do put quite a lot of labour hours into bunkers. Is always the intention, the plan, to do one bunker on a week. 1 week it's sort of strimming around the edges where the grass gets long around those, and pulling the weeds out, giving that a blowout, and then rake them in behind. And then the next week will be work on sand levels and weeds again, and then a third one is to de-stone them. So you may well see a few more stones hanging around where we've disturbed quite a bit of the sand levels. It may have disturbed some of the stones that are just under there where we've dug down in certain areas to get those in there. But I've found it's the right way around to do the sand levels and then do the stones after, because in the past we've done the stones first and then gone into sand levels and sort of overturned some of that sand and ended up with stones present in the bunkers for longer. So it's good to do the stones, as I said, good to do the stones after playing around the sand. So the process of this is we lose sand out the middles for 3 or 4 reasons. One, it can just get hit out of the bunker. 2, it can blow into pockets with the wind. Quite often, the sort of where the wind direction, the prevailing wind direction, you can get some in the pocket where the wind comes from, and then the opposite corner as well where it's blown into, because so sometimes you can have a northeasterly wind which will blow it one way and then it will get stuck under a lip, and vice versa. If it's coming from a southwesterly direction, it will often get blown into the northeasterly lip and things like that. And then, as I've talked about a lot, it can get hit out of the middle to up the face with the direction it has been played, and then quite often it's raked out the middle up against the edges. So we've had a really good scratch round on the edges to make sure that we've got a nice 2 to 4 inch lip around those, and push as much as we can in the middles from that, and then also work on those faces as I said, sometimes it gets often it gets hit towards the playing direction and ends up that face. So A good guide that I went through with the team was to use the rake handles in the bunkers. The handles, the top handles on them, they're about 4 inches, and use those as a guide, we want sort of between an inch, 2 inches on the faces, and between sort of 3 and 4 inches in the base. So use those as an example, to try and get the sand levels right. And really sort of push the sand around in to try and get as much in the middle and get those levels as desirable as possible. And then we took note of any that we felt that we couldn't get up to those levels because there just wasn't enough sand in those, and then we've written down sort of half a dozen or so bunkers that just need to top up, and we'll get to those either in the coming weeks, and add that to on the job list to do. And finally, a new addition to some of the tees out there. We've built and installed these tee caddy bins, which will go on the first hole and the par threes. The idea of the par threes is that people reuse a lot of the broken tees and things to hit their irons, and they look and for aesthetics and to look nice and give a good first impression off the first tee. So yeah, we've been working on these in the background, using our rustic sleeper theme that we use around the golf course. So use plenty of the offcuts and things that have come off the sleepers from the 15th steps. Just to make and create these, put our club colours on the side just to smarten them up and personalise them. So and just a note on that. So yeah, these will work obviously in tandem with the ones that we've put out on the golf course. The idea is the ones we put out on the golf course is to keep the tees nice and tidy. So just thank you very much for using all of those. I think they've been well received, and they're very busy, and they've kept the tees very, very clean and tidy, which is great. It means that we spend less time doing a tee pick before mowing, and as I said, it just keeps tidy just for appearance as well, and because those tees can cause damage to the mowers as well, which is why we do that tee pick. So so that's the final addition to those, and I think they're a good addition and look great. And that is all for this week, folks. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Just one thing of note for next week is now the field has been harvested now next to the driving range. We'll enter that and do a good pick to pick some of the balls. So there will be a driving range closure, which is scheduled for Tuesday morning. So yeah, that's one thing of note, and we look forward to catching up with you at the end of next week.